Hello, my name's Afiba, and today I'm going to be going through all of your assumptions about me. So I asked all of my followers on Instagram to send me in some stuff, and we're basically just going to go through them. Happens to be today is Tuesday, April 5th, and then this video is going to go up tomorrow, April 6th, and my birthday is April 7th. So that's kind of why I wanted to do this video, just to do something that wasn't like book recommendation. So I thought of this, so this is what you get. So happens to be a lot of people did wish me happy birthday. So thank you so much to everybody who did do that. I very much appreciate it. And I also appreciate everybody who did, send something in, because without you guys, I wouldn't have been able to make this video. And I apologize if I don't get to yours, only because, there were so many responses, and I'm definitely not going to sit here for 3 hours to get through all of them. So we'll see how many I can get through before I get sick of doing this. But yeah, with that said, besides for assumptions, a lot of people also did send in some questions. So I'm going to go through some of the questions first, and then we'll get into all of the assumptions. So first up, a lot of people did ask, when and why did I start my YouTube channel? So I did start it just over a year ago. I started it right when I came home from vacation in February of, I guess it was 2021, whatever last year was. I'm so bad with numbers, but I basically have wanted to make a YouTube channel for a very long time. I always thought that I would be really good at it. I just needed a topic of what I wanted it to be about. And I was reading for about a year at the time. I started reading when COVID had started, and I think I had read over 100 books when I was like, you know what, I have so much I can share. I have so many good thoughts that what's the worst that's going to happen? I start a channel and then nothing actually comes of it. That is the worst thing that could possibly come from this. So I decided that when I get home from vacation, I'm finally going to do it. So I came home, and within 48 hours or so, I had my first video up, and the rest is basically history. I had started my Instagram a couple of weeks after that, and then I had opened up my TikTok maybe a month or so after that, and then I just got it into a system of doing all three platforms, and that is basically how I got here. So did I answer that? That was kind of when I started my channel. So why did I start my channel? I kind of said that, but my big thing was that I needed an outlet for all of the books that I was reading. I really needed to get it out. I was talking to my husband about all of the books that I was reading at the time, and he didn't mind listening, but I knew he didn't care. And I don't really have any real friends. Not that I don't even have any friends that are into books. I don't really have any friends that I talk to on a regular basis. So I really had no one but myself to talk to. So I kind of thought that it would be a good outlet for me to, talk to a camera, post it online, and see if anybody responds. And very fortunately, a lot of people have responded to my stuff. So, I kind of got what I wanted out of it. I have a place to talk about all the books that I, was reading, and yeah, that's basically it. So second most asked question that honestly I feel like I've answered on my channel a couple of times before, as well as the first question, but I'm going to answer it again, is what is your job, and is this your only job? For some reason, it's kind of funny because people think that if you do social media, it kind of turns into a job, and that is not the case for most people. Yes, some people are very fortunate to be able to make a living off of doing social media if you have a large following, but with the numbers that I have at this current moment, I don't make enough to actually make it worthwhile. So if I wasn't as passionate about this as I was, I definitely wouldn't be doing it, because the amount of time that I spend doing all of this, making videos, making reels, making TikToks, posting pictures, commenting, DMing, everything along those lines, if I didn't actually really enjoy doing it, I never would do this in 1,000 years, because it literally takes up my whole life, and it would for sure not be worth it if I wasn't getting something out of it, mentally, because it very much does help my mental stability to be able to outlet all of the books that I read. But I do get some stuff. I sometimes get free books from authors or publishers, and I do make a little bit off of monetization, but nothing worthwhile that is anything to write home about. And sometimes people do reach out that they want to sponsor some stuff, and that could add up, and hopefully one day when I have even a bigger following, more people will reach out, and then that will pay off even more. But at the moment, if this wasn't enjoyable, I 100% wouldn't be doing that. So what I do for work is actually, I'm a graphic designer. That's actually why it has been so easy for me to do all of this stuff, because I already know the ins and out of all of the softwares that I have to do for the photography, the videography, everything along those lines, because I do this for clients. I own my own graphic design company. I work from home. Therefore, I have my own hours, and that is why I have so much time to read, because I'm home all the time and I can work whenever I want. So if I'm not in the mood of working, I'll just read. Or if I have nothing to do for the day work-wise, then I just get to read all day. So that is how I do end up getting cramming through so many books because of my lifestyle and, because of my job. But I am a graphic designer. I do a lot of, branding, social media sort of stuff. I work often on Amazon. I create the listing images. Like when you're going to purchase something, like I'm the person who like creates the image that you're looking at for like the dimensions and all the information and everything along those lines. So yeah, that's what I do. So this next one was a very random question, but I actually it's funny because I never really thought about this until I saw it, but somebody asked, do you like when books include a playlist or mention songs? And happens to be, I know so many people who actually enjoy listening to music while they're reading a book, but that is not me. I need like complete silence when I'm reading a book, and therefore the playlists don't do anything for me. And I actually think that like sometimes authors, they'll create the book around the playlist. It's like, oh, they want this playlist, they want to give off this vibe, and therefore they'll kind of like mix it in a way where it's like you should be listening to both to get the full effect. And when it's that case, I don't really like it because I'm not listening to the playlist, and I always feel like I'm missing out on something a little bit. But like, yes, I am missing out on something because I should be listening to the playlist while I'm like, reading a specific scene, and I'm not doing that. And therefore, it's like a bad circle. But at the end of the day, I don't ever think that like, oh, I completely missed out on something by not listening to the playlist. So like, it's okay. It doesn't bother me so much. But like in theory, it kind of does, because if an author will like say a specific playlist, like, oh, they're in the car listening to like this song, sometimes I will have the urge to like pick up my phone and be like, okay, well, what song is this? Because I want to know the vibe. But at the same time, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be pulled out of this story to like have to go and look up a song. So it's a weird feeling, and it's like I've got mixed feelings about it, because at the end of the day, like, it doesn't necessarily bother me, but because I don't listen to music while I'm reading, I feel like I'm missing out on something. Does that make sense? How did you get into reading spicy books, and which was your first? Okay, so I specifically remember the first adult contemporary romance, which isn't considered a spicy book, was Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. So I had gotten that recommendation from Haley and Bookland, like, I don't know how long ago, within the first year of me actually starting to read, like before I even started my YouTube channel. So over a year ago, I read my first adult contemporary romance, and it had one explicit sex scene in it. And I was like, oh my God, what have I found? Because before that, I was only reading like fantasy books that had some romance in it, like Sarah J. Maas and Throne of Glass. And I always remember that I was always focusing on the romance. I always realized that even when I was reading a fantasy book, I needed the romance to get me through any book. I was always holding off until like the next kiss or the next time that they were going to meet or something along those lines. And I did used to read romances in between some fantasy books. Like I'll read like YA romances, things along those lines. But I just remember like when I started reading Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating, I'm like, oh my God, I have to read more of that. So then I really got myself into, the classic adult contemporary romances, all of the illustrated covers and things along those lines. And like, I remember at one point I had found like the Kiss Quotient, and I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is this? This is like a really spicy book hiding behind a very doesn't look like it's spicy type of cover. And then I kind of like slowly just trickled into reading more romances in general. Like I kind of just got into adult contemporary romances, and it pushed me a little bit out of fantasy and a little bit more into, romances in general, just because I was enjoying them so much more. Like it's so different reading YA to adult. And then I don't know when it specifically switched over, but sometime last summer, so less than a year ago, what is it, maybe 7-8 months ago, I remember reading the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. I don't know what exactly pushed me to read it, but it was I saw it all over my feed for a very long time. And then I had asked my friend Olive's bookshelf, her name's Olivia or Olive, I forgot, but basically I had asked her a little bit about it. I'm like, oh, do you think I'm gonna like it? And she's like, oh my God, you gotta read it. So I read it, and then that was my first sports romance. And then after that, everything basically changed. All of a sudden, I wanted to read all of the books that had the naked men on the covers. I had always stayed away from that. And then I remember reading like the Sinner of Saints series by Elle LJ Shen, so Vicious, Ruckus, Scandalous, and Bane. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell is this stuff? I have to read more of it. And then I remember I kind of like read the Dirty Air series. Like that's kind of when I started the Dirty Air series because I was looking into sports romances a little bit. And then I read the Ravenhood series, which was like the craziest thing I ever read at the time, which still is like top tier of like, stuff that I read because there was like a threesome in it and everything like that. And I very much enjoyed that. And then I kind of started down that path. So sometime over the summer, those were the first couple of books that I read, and I'm sure there were a couple of others, but that was the start of how I got to reading what I read now. Do you feel weird about spending all your time reading as opposed to socializing? So my answer to that is a very simple no, but that is because I am very happy with my lifestyle. Again, I've mentioned this in like a bunch of other videos before when I do like Q&As, but I never leave my house. I am extremely antisocial. Not that I have like an issue being social, but I just very much rather be by myself and talk to nobody and hang out with nobody and everything along those lines. So I leave my house once a week just to get groceries. I literally stay inside every single day and don't talk to a single soul besides for my husband and my dog. And I love that life. I'm extremely happy doing nothing, but not a lot of people can actually handle that. Like my family does not understand it. They're always like, yeah, but don't you like want to just go out? Like, don't you just want to walk around? And I'm like, no, I'll walk around my property. I live on 6 acres and I'll take my dog for a walk if I want to go out. Like, why do I need to socialize? Why do I need to go to the mall and just look at stuff that I don't need because I don't go out or anything like that? Like, I don't need to get new clothing all the time because I'm not going anywhere. And I don't need to go out and get a coffee because I don't drink coffee and I don't eat out. I always just eat at home. Like, I live too far for like Uber to ever drop anything off. Like, I live like 15, 20 minutes away from like the actual town that I live in. And like, cause I live in the middle of nowhere, I live like around a bunch of farms, So Uber never drops anything off. So I've gotten very used to just eating out of my house and basically never leaving. And I personally am extremely happy with my lifestyle, but a lot of people don't understand it. And I feel like that's maybe why you asked it, because like, do I feel weird about like doing what I do instead of socializing? And I very much don't, because I will randomly socialize with my friends. I will randomly go into the city and go out to dinner with all of them. And I actually had a bunch of friends over this weekend, which was very abnormal. That doesn't happen often, but they did come over for the weekend and I hung out with them and we were very social by doing nothing together. And it was a lot of fun. So it's not like I don't do it at all, but also like I can count on one hand how many times I've gone out since probably the summer. Like I had my friends over this weekend and then we went out like December time. And like before then it was like one more time. And then like sometime in September, like I can remember every time I've gone out because I never go out. So I get it that not a lot of people understand that, but it's the way that I live my life and I am extremely happy with it. And I'm not joking about that. I really, really am. Okay, I know I have to get to like all of the assumptions, but I want to answer this last question because I saw a handful of people ask it and they asked if I can repeat my spice scale, because if you follow me on Instagram and you follow my stories, then you know that I always put like reviews of every book that I read right after I finish it. And I do a rating and then I do a spice scale. And I used to have on my channel like how I rate my books, like spice wise and like a star wise, and I kind of took it down because I felt it to be a little bit too like how do you say it, like closed off? Like I felt too like pushed into a certain category by like specifically saying like what I believe this number is, because at the end of the day, first and foremost, I go off of feeling and vibe and just when I finish a book, like what do I feel like it was, But in general, I will quickly tell you my spice scale. And it's funny because I just had to tell this to my friends when they were over for the weekend. They're very into like my books. Like they find it very funny how I like all the books that I read, and not that they make fun of me, but it's just something that like always comes up every time I'm with my friends. And happens to be this weekend, I went into very big detail of like what my spice scale entails. So I will do it for you guys now. So number 1 is fade to black. That means that there's no actual like sex on the page. It's probably like, a YA, the girl lost her virginity. So it's like, oh, she was going to lose her virginity and then like jump to the next scene. Now they're cuddling. Like that's a fade to black one. Like you don't actually see it on screen, but you know that it happened. So anything before that, like if they just kiss, something along those lines, it doesn't even make it onto my spice scale. So fade to blacks is a number 1. And then number 2 is when there is sex on the page, except it's not very explicit. Like I don't think I can go into extreme detail, on YouTube because like they'll probably like, unmonetize my video, but it's just when it's explicit, but it's not like overly explainable. Like, I mean, how much do you want to say? But that is kind of it. Like, it's just, you'll get a few scenes. It's not specific, like either one scene or 3-4 scenes, but it's just, it doesn't feel extremely spicy, if that makes sense. So then you move into number 3, like on the 3 scale of 3 to 5. And that is explicit scenes. It's when it's very descriptive, when there's probably more than one of them in the book. And it's something that it's going to get you hot and bothered because it's multiple pages. It's very descriptive, things along those lines. So more or less, like often it will probably hit at like the 2.5 to the 3, like of what I usually read. And then we have number 4, which is kinks. So BDSM, tying people up, things along those lines, whipping, stuff like that, like anything that is technically considered a kink is number 4. And then number 5, I don't know if I've ever read a number 5, like maybe a couple of times I've read like a 4.5, but it's just something that blows my mind. So it's kink, but on another level, just some kinks that like I've never come across before, or something that was just like next level crazy that isn't a normal kink, And it's funny because my friends were like, so what would you consider 50 Shades of Grey? And I've never read the 50 Shades of Grey books, but I have seen like the first movie, and I feel like 50 Shades of Grey is number 4. Like that is regular kinks, BDSM. That is whipping and submissive dominance. And that is, tying people up and things along those lines. That's like a normal BDSM situation. So like something crazier than that I'm not even going to say it on this channel, but like just think about how crazy stuff can go. Like, I mean, yeah, so that's kind of my spice rating. Anything above a 4 is just when I was blown away. Okay, I'm sorry. We're ready for assumptions. So somebody said you are a fast reader, and my answer to that is a very hard no. I only read maybe 25 to 50 pages per hour, which is a very normal rate for reading. Like if you Google it, like that is a very normal reading like pace or whatever you want to say, mostly because it depends on the book. Like if there is a lot of words on the page, I'll read it slower. And then if there are less words on the page, like a YA book, I'll obviously read it faster. But I feel like I'm a pretty normal paced reader. It's just that I read a lot. Like if I'm reading a book and like I read one book a day, I'm starting it at 10 a.m. and I'm finishing it at 9 p.m. while also eating dinner and doing a handful of stuff, going for walks with my dog, things along those lines. But like a book will still take me a complete day to read. I don't finish a book in 4 hours, like I just spend a lot of time reading, if that makes sense. You read more than you talk to people. 1010% yes. I hardly ever talk to human beings. Honestly, I probably talk to you guys more than I talk to a person in real life. So my week basically consists of me talking to my husband every day when he gets home, maybe on the phone when he's working if he's bored. And then once a week, I call my mother and we catch up before the weekend. That is literally the only people that I talk to. If the random times that I actually go out, I'll talk to like other human beings, like my friends or something, if we very, very randomly have something to do together. But like for the most part, I literally talk to you guys, I talk to my husband, I talk to my dog, and I talk to my mother. And extremely randomly, I will maybe talk to one of my siblings because like if we have something to say or we need something from each other, we'll talk to each other. But like I really don't even talk to my siblings very often, let alone like normal human beings. So 1000% yes, I do read way more than I actually talk to a normal human being. You are introverted in real life. And then somebody else also said, you are a really social person. So I think I've already said that, no, I am not a very social person. And the thing is that I choose not to be. I think that I'm like a chosen introvert, if that makes sense. Like I have chosen to be introverted, but when I'm like out and being social, I actually have a very easy time like hanging out in a big group of people. Like I'm not very much the person who like sits in the corner because I don't like talking to people. Like I really don't mind having conversations with people when I'm out and about. It's just that I choose not to go out and about and put myself in a situation where I have to be social, if that makes sense. So I feel like I'm a chosen introvert. Like if I'm just not in the mood, yeah, I'll sit in the corner and like be on my phone the whole time. Except I hardly ever go out. So when I do go out, I try not to do that and I try to talk to people because like why the hell not? So I'm not introverted, but I feel like I've chosen to be introverted, if that makes sense. And then am I a really social person? I mean, I don't know. You're really smart and selective of the people you hang out with. So yes, I am very selective of the people that I hang out with, only because I don't often hang out with anybody. And then you're really smart. I feel like the answer to that is no, but also I feel like it depends on like the subject. And it depends on like the time in my life that you're asking me. Like, I feel like in school, I wasn't like a C person. Like, I did graduate with did I graduate with like a 4.0? Or something like that. I think I graduated with like a 4.0 or like a 3.92, something along those lines. Like, I was fine in college, like generally, but I'm not necessarily like a very studious person. I feel like maybe you can call me like more of a street smart person, but at the same time, like there's so much stuff that I'm like extremely dumb about. Like, you put me on, you blindfold me and tell me like, oh yeah, go find your way home. Like, I don't even know like if it's east or west that the sun comes up. Like, I'm so bad with directions. I'm so oblivious sometimes with things around me that in certain instances I am extremely dumb, but then in other instances I feel like I'm very smart. Like, I'm very like, I don't know, I feel like it just depends. Like, in general, I wouldn't necessarily call myself like dumb or smart. I feel like it just depends on like in what way you're asking it, if that makes sense. So a handful of people said things along the lines of like, you're a really happy person and like you're really positive and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny because I feel like I'm a dilemma in the sense of like, I am an extremely happy person, but also I'm extremely pessimistic. So let's take one at a time. So I'm a very happy person because I absolutely love my life. And I feel like I say it very often of how grateful I am about everything from like big scale life to like every single day life. I love my day-to-day life of the fact that I get to read every day. I get to work from home. I get to just hang out with my dog, hang out with my husband, do anything that I want. I have worked hard to set myself up for the life that I want to live, and I am living it. And therefore, I'm extremely happy about that. And then on a bigger scale, I very much love the house that I live in. I love the place that I live in, everything along those lines. So like, I don't really have anything to complain about, in life. And therefore, like, I am in general a very happy person because I really like the life that I've set up for myself. And yes, I can get down often as well. Like, stuff on social media can really get to me when like people are trying to hate on me or stuff along those lines, or like I could just be having like, my time of the month and therefore I'm just in a bad mood. And like, I definitely could get into a bad mood, but I feel like in general, like I am more of a happier person than I am like a sad person. Like, I wouldn't think of myself as a sad person, if that makes sense, because to be very honest with you, I don't really have things to be sad about. So when I do get sad about something, at least it's like, oh, that's the worst of my problems. Like, something bad happened that's not really even that bad. Like, okay, well, you know what? At least like this isn't a problem for me, like I feel like in general, I have a lot of things to be grateful for. So in general, yeah, I am a very happy person, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily a very positive person. I would consider myself a very pessimistic person. Like, in the grumpy sunshine trope world, I am the grump and my husband is the sunshine, 1000%. I do always look at the negative first, and then I have to go and find the positive. And I feel like if you've been following me for long enough, you'd probably even like get that vibe off of me. Like, I've noticed that like in all of my reviews, I can't help but point out the bad. Like, even if a book is amazing, I can't help but like throw in one thing that bothered me. And I feel like that's how I always am. Like, even if I'm trying to be positive, there's always something negative for me to complain about, which is, it's bad. And like, my husband's like, oh, well, you always could change. And I'm always like, oh, well, it's very hard to change like the way that your brain automatically thinks. And it's something that we always go back and forth about. But in general, I am actually an extremely pessimistic person, but I am a happy pessimist. You're very confident. I will say that, yeah, I am a very confident person. I feel like obviously everybody's insecure about certain things. Like, yeah, obviously, like I'm always looking at my stomach and being like, can you see the food that I ate today? Like, yeah, I'm very insecure about that. Or like, oh, I probably should work out more, or I could lose some weight, or, I don't know. There's stuff that everybody's insecure about. And I 100% do have a lot of insecurities, specifically about like, my body. While I know that I'm very skinny and, I'm the skinniest one in my family, and a lot of people think I'm very beautiful, like I hear everything that people say. Like, at the same time, like I'm still me, and I'm always doubting things. I'm always looking at myself and being like, ugh, like I have bad days and I'm like, I don't even want to look in the mirror. And it's like, I could be extremely insecure, but at the same time, in general, like I feel like I am a very confident person. Like I feel like, not even like body wise or like how like looks wise, like I feel like, yeah, I am a confident person. Like I don't feel like, I don't think I am insecure, but I obviously do have a lot of insecurities, if that makes sense. You're a natural blonde. 100% no. Technically, according to my hair person, like the person that like dyes my hair, I'm on the top level of dirty blonde. So I wouldn't be considered brown, but I mean, like, look at my roots. Like, they look very dark, but compared to like an actual brunette, no, I'm not technically a brunette, but I'm not naturally this light. I do color my hair all of the time. And happens to be, it's funny because my oldest sister is a real brunette, and then my youngest sister is a real blonde. And then we have like one more sister right above me, and she is like, brown, but not as brown as like my top sister. And then I am like dirty blonde / a light brown, and then my sister's blonde. So I feel like my family, we fade. Like, we're kind of like an ombre. And because I'm the second to bottom, I'm not blonde, but I'm also not brunette. And also, this isn't my natural hair, and I feel like I don't even look 100% blonde. But no, this is my natural hair, and this is fake. You think that Booktalk recs are always overhyped. In general, yes. But also, like, I know a lot of people don't like using the word overhyped, because all it really means is that a lot of people have enjoyed a book and therefore they're pushing a book. My issue with it is that I think a lot of people have a lot of very different tastes, and everybody is looking for something else specifically. That's one reason why I very much like BookTube specifically, because I get to hear why people felt a certain way about a book. Versus when you're looking at a book on Instagram or looking at a book on Booktalk, you get a lot less information, and therefore somebody would have loved a book, but they didn't necessarily tell you why they loved it. What was it that really pulled them into loving it? And therefore, the reasons that they loved it might not be the reasons that you would love it. So when I actually make my reviews, I have a very specific type of book that I'm looking for, and I feel like I always try to point out specific things so that you guys would get a better understanding of if you think the book would be for you or not. Like, sometimes I recommend books that I personally didn't love, but like, I can see why some person will love it. Like, I can see why people are gravitating towards a certain book, and therefore I'll talk about it and be like, if you like this type of book, you will probably enjoy this book, even though I didn't love it for these specific reasons. So I feel like with Booktalk specifically, like, you get the least amount of information as to why somebody enjoyed a book or not. And therefore, I do think that Booktalk has a lot of overhyped books, mostly because people are pushing books they're pushing books without context, and therefore somebody's just going to see a book, and therefore they're going to hype it up because they're going to see it over and over again. And then they're going to read it and they're going to be like, well, I didn't like it, and like, why was I seeing it all over the place? And it's like, you're seeing it all over the place because there's so many different type of, personalities on Booktalk, and they're not like separated in the correct way to get book recommendations, if that makes sense. So in general, yes, I do find Booktalk recs to be overhyped in the sense of everything that I just said, if you understood my thought process. You hated books as a kid, and it's funny because I've had ups and downs with books. When I was very young, I loved books. Like, I would go to the library every Friday with my family, and we would all max out our library cards. Like, I'm talking about when I'm really young, like as young as I can start reading, up until probably like middle school, like 4th grade, 5th grade, somewhere along those lines. I was a very avid reader. Like, I never really minded reading books for school unless like I wasn't into the book, stuff along those lines. Like, I very much remember enjoying reading for fun and reading for school. And then somewhere around middle school, probably puberty, I kind of fell out of it. Like, for one, I don't exactly remember why, but there were a handful of years, basically whenever I stopped reading as a child up until 2 years ago, I didn't really read books. Not that I was necessarily against it. I didn't hate it. I always enjoyed the idea of it, but I never really wanted to spend the time to do it because I got very into, binging shows. Like, that's when I kind of got into like watching Vampire Diaries, Gilmore Girls, Game of Thrones, things along those lines. And I would spend hours watching TV instead of reading books. Like, puberty, teenagers, I flipped that switch. And then when COVID started, and it happens to be, it wasn't because of COVID, because I've always been like living this at-home life. So it wasn't like, I necessarily got bored, but there was just something along the time of when COVID, happened to have hit. I kind of got sick of watching TV, like rewatching everything that I've watched probably like 10, 12 times before. And I decided to just like start reading books again. And then I got extremely obsessed with it because I kind of like stopped watching, so I started reading. So I feel like, throughout my life, I just went back and forth between doing that. And at the moment, I'm extremely obsessed with reading. And to be very honest with you, I don't see myself getting obsessed with watching TV anytime soon or probably ever again. Okay, my foot has been like very awkwardly sitting like this, so I'm gonna have to go because it's starting to fall asleep. So I'm only gonna do 2 more. So I saw somebody ask, do you exercise a lot? And I've had just like books and watching TV, I've had a very up and down relationship with working out. So I was never into physical fitness, like growing up, like my high school and college. Like I was never very into any of the phys ed sort of stuff. So I actually was extremely inactive up until maybe I was like 18, 19 years old, something along those lines. And then all of a sudden, I found one stretch mark on my body and I'm like, holy crap, I don't want to get fat. I have to start working out. So I started to work out at home, stuff along those lines. And then when I was 20 years old, I moved to Colorado with my boyfriend, who is now my husband. And I got very into yoga and barre, so into it to the point where I actually became a barre teacher. So I technically can't teach a barre class if I can. If you're not familiar with barre it's kind of like, it's like a workout for dancers. It's kind of very similar to Pilates, but with a little bit more weights, a little bit more of not as much stretching, more of a workout. And it's something if you're into Pilates and if you're into yoga, then you also can possibly very much enjoy barre. So I am actually a barre teacher because for the 2 years that I lived in Colorado, I was extremely obsessed to the point where I would go to 2 classes a day at my studio. I would go to a yoga class a day, and then I would go to a Pilates or a barre class every single day. I was extremely obsessed with it. The only thing is that when I moved back home to New York, I don't have anything close to me. My closest studio is half an hour away, and I just don't have the patience to drive for an hour for an hour class. So I had to start working out at home. And unfortunately, when I did start working out at home, I slowly lost interest in working out. I found it so much harder to actually get to my mat, and I found myself enjoying it a lot less. So I have fizzled out. And over the past couple of years that I have lived in this house, I have gone up and down of working out. At some points I would work out every single day, and then sometimes I would only work out every other day, and then sometimes I would totally stop for a month or 2. And unfortunately, I am in the moment where I have stopped for probably 6 months and I haven't worked out, but it's in my head at the moment of I really got to get back into it. And it's not really even because of the summer. It's more of because I feel I've gotten a little bit flabby and I need to get my muscles back. So it's been in my head to start working out again, but basically I have an extremely love-hate relationship with working out, and I'm either extremely on or I'm extremely off. And at the moment, I am extremely off. Okay, and last question, because I'm officially having tingles in my foot and I gotta stand up, but you are a Gryffindor. And it's funny, first of all, yes, I love Harry Potter, and growing up, I always wished I was a Gryffindor, but I feel not secretly, because I'm telling you this right now, but I feel if I actually would have gotten the sorting hat, they would have put me in Slytherin. And I'm not gonna go into that as to why, but I feel I would have been put in Slytherin, but I was always I thought that Gryffindors were cool, and I never would have even thought of Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw. It wasn't Hufflepuff. I feel I said that wrong, but I never would have even thought to be put into one of those houses. I never think about those houses even. I'm very not like them whatsoever. So I'm very much a Slytherin, but I feel I would fit into a Gryffindor as well. I guess it's I've kind of not that I've got a split personality or anything like that, but I feel I can go either way, and I feel naturally at the age of 11, I would have been put into Slytherin, but whatever, right? So with that said, that is all of the questions and the assumptions that I'll be answering for you today. So I hope that this video wasn't too long. I feel it was probably way too long, but what you gonna do? So anyway, if you made it to the end, then let me know down below. Maybe wish me a happy birthday or a belated birthday, whenever it is that you're watching this video, because if you do, then I'll know that maybe you made it to the end. But also, some people might wish me a birthday even if they didn't make it to the end, so that doesn't even make sense. But whatever, leave a comment down below, and if you enjoyed watching this video, then give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe if you're not currently subscribed. And thank you so much for watching this video and clicking on it. I very much appreciate it, and until next time, enjoy reading.